They couldn't talk via speaking word, but they could hear each other's voices within their heads. I mean, they could definitely communicate, nonverbal communication. They developed the J-Rod, through visual aids, showed Dan his family back home in his own world. So there was a friendship here. And basically the J-Rod told Dan that he wanted to go home to see his family because he was upset that he'd been around here since the crash in Kingman. We're talking decades here. And so out of his heart, there's a ramp that leads into one of these Stargates. And Dan Burisch took it upon himself, and he knew that this is apparently the only option, as he pushed the J-Rod into one of these Stargates that we had accessed, and J-Rod was sent home. And that's what happened.
Yeah, the reason that they were there, though, was because the J-Rod was granted access to communicate with his species through the Stargate?
I don't know if he could communicate with his own species through that particular Stargate, but we know that, according to Dan, that these are naturally occurring, and we have the technology to access those naturally occurring Stargates through man-made technology. That was confirmed by Dan.
But for all the listeners out there, the reason that they were there in Abydos is what?
I don't know why they were there for that particular mission, but that's the particular mission that Dan Burisch said that he sent J-Rod home in.
But obviously he was cleared. I mean, he must have been with the entourage.
He was cleared for that, yes.
Yeah, very interesting.
That was the last time he ever saw the J-Rod.
Very interesting.
That's the last time he was ever seen.
Now,
so we believe that he is back with his family at this time.
Very touching. I have to ask you something else. I noticed in these pictures, this has been bugging me the whole time. It'll get a little bit light here, but in some of these drawings, when I first saw them, I was perplexed. And in the drawings, there's like a plate attached to the genital region of J-Rod. I don't understand what that's all about.
Yeah, he had a very different type of genitalia than we have, which I didn't really want to go into very much, but that was those sketches were done by my good friend Mark McCandlish, who definitely should get credit for making these sketches up. Those were done by Mark McCandlish under the direction of Dan Burisch, and they did discuss how they reproduce and the genitalia of the extraterrestrials from his world. I just opted not to get into that issue because I just didn't want to cover that. I don't know if I felt comfortable getting into that. And so if you look on there, that's exactly what you will see. Yes, they had a different reproductive organs than we have here.
It looks like a steel plate to me. Is this like a cyborg biological entity?
No, it is a biological entity. And those are, there's like a clevis that attaches to the female, and that's how it's done.
Wow, because it looks like...
It is very strange, I'll grant you that. It's unlike anything you've seen here.
So what I'm looking at is actually organic part of the J-Rod.
Yes, that is correct. Now, that might not be exactly correct, but that's a general relative drawing of what it looks like, yes.
Okay, very interesting. And as we understand, if you read Project Aquarius, the J-Rod relayed to Dan Burisch that its actual name was Chi-La. Maybe you can explain why...
Kaela, yes.
Oh, Kaela, okay.
Kaela.
How do you... What's the significance of the name J-Rod? Because it's quite strange and numerological.
J-Rod has to do with the number on the keyboard, J, and the hyphen, and that's because that's where he came from. 15 light years away. That's the origin of the J-Rod.
Got you. Now, what's the importance of this other level of S4 that you were referring to before? Was this the...
Well, there's, as we mentioned before, there are 5 layers at S4. The other thing to mention on 4-1 is right in front of the hangar bays, okay, there's something called 4-1B. It is a sub-level to 4-1. It's not a completely different layer, but it's just like relieved from level 4-1. This is for the simulator-type devices that Will Uhouse had talked about. And those devices are in this relieved layer. It's for the simulation on how you get American test pilots to fly these vehicles. That's what that was all about. And also we should mention that there is a cafeteria on level 4-1, and when you talk about the seating arrangement, the seats are round and they are divided into programs. When you talk about Project Aquarius, that is an umbrella terminology. Project Aquarius is an umbrella term for mankind's interaction with extraterrestrials. Essentially, that's what Project Aquarius is. Now, under that program, there were at least 5 separate programs as well. And the people who work on these programs sit in designated seating areas. So you've got Project Galileo, you've got weapons research, you've got Looking Glass, and you've got Project Aquarius. So that's kind of like the seating area for the people who work there. Now, when we go down to 4-2, this is a very interesting floor. There was weapons research and development going on here. Project Sidekick, which Dan did not discuss because this has a lot to do with national security and weapons, so I did not get a lot of information on Project Sidekick, so I don't know exactly what is taking place there. However, the Looking Glass device was on 4-1, and I personally think that the most interesting part of 4-1 is that there was approximately a 3-foot-tall statue of a Alice in Wonderland rabbit at the entrance to the 4-2 facility. Now, that is the most nostalgic part of this whole facility, so if anyone could get a hold of that rabbit, it would be incredible.
Yeah, really. Absolutely interesting.
And that was a symbolic message that, you know, you're no longer in Kansas anymore. You're going to a dream world is what that's kind of talking about. Now, how they figured these Stargates out is that these were reverse engineered from naturally occurring Stargates that the Sumerians had talked and wrote about in their cylinder seals. That's where they got this technology from.
Yeah, I find that fascinating, especially where the late Zecharia Sitchin, who just passed on October 9th, I believe, that was his whole platform, that we were the creation of the Anunnaki, and they had great technological advances over us. So I think that's a very interesting connection there, definitely.
Right.
So there's naturally occurring Stargates. Iraq, right? Abydos?
Yes, Iraq, Abydos, yes, correct, correct.
Very interesting indeed. Michael, I know you're a busy guy. I don't want to take up any more of your time. You've got a huge International UFO Congress coming up. Open Minds putting that on, of course, in Arizona at a beautiful hotel there. You're working on this massive 3D presentation with Dan Burisch there. What else is coming up for you?
We are going to perhaps look into doing the same thing that we did for S4 on Dulce, which is the infamous Dulce underground base, which has never been completely confirmed by anyone, I don't think.
Yeah.
In ufology, this has been going around for decades. I don't think anyone has any physical evidence that the facility exists, but we're going to look into this with a contact we've recently been addressed with, and we're going to try to do the same thing that we did with S4 to the Dulce facility. So that's kind of next on the plate.
That's very cool. Yeah, we all know about Phil Schneider, don't we?
Phil Schneider, absolutely. Interesting guy, very interesting guy.
Very interesting end
an
as
American
well.
patriot, and should get all the credit that's deserved to him. Would be nice to get some confirmation regarding his account, and that's what we're looking into. So.
And of course, all of you out there listening, Phil Schneider is no longer with us, who died of very unusual circumstances.
Correct.
You are very busy. You write for Open Minds. You do a lot of freelance stuff. You're working with Burisch. You're on lectures, TV, media. The UFO Congress is coming up. I want to thank you for all your expertise, for joining us on Atlantic Canada's only paranormal/expanding consciousness radio broadcast, The Unified Field. Michael Schratt, I'm honored and humbled to have had you here.
Hey, Justin, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're a gentleman and scholar. I hope we can talk again.
Great, no problem. Will do.
Hey, maybe I'll ask Alejandro, see if he can sneak me in a free pass to this IUFO-C.
Consider it done, yes.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks a lot, Michael. We'll talk to you in the future, I hope.
Okay, yep, take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You are listening to the Unified Field.
You've been listening to The Unified Field. Be sure to tune in to the mothership CKDU for other fine programming. Check us out on iTunes, Blog Talk, YouTube, MySpace, Blueberry, and coming soon on Facebook. For questions, feedback, comments, show ideas, or anything else, contact us directly at unifiedfieldradio@gmail.com.